Okay, it's day 87. This is part 4. A lot of folks said, why did you say anything about Wendy Martinez, the Chief of Staff for this fiscal note? And like I say, I'm not putting out any theories or whatnot. I'm just giving everybody the information so that you can decide what to make of it. She's the Chief of Staff of Fiscal Note. When Fiscal Note moved from Silicon Valley here to DC to 1201 Pennsylvania Avenue, one of the big reasons was Stan McChrystal, and they changed the focus being more toward knowing K Street, really knowing K Street, being able to kind of automate and replace K Street. And he's very involved in the company and as an advisor. So one of the things I did is I published a Vimeo where he's actually with the CEO and he's talking with him as a key advisor about K Street. And one of the things they do is collect data. They collect information, they collect what the K Street firm's output has been in order to do predictive analysis of how people are going to vote, position papers, and so forth. So that's really important. There's a real key contact and a real key linkage between Fiscal Note and K Street. That's all they do. That's the key thing. And their programs go into the K Street servers, including the Brookings Institution, crawling and getting all the information. This is very much like the information that was stored on JSTOR. There were scientific papers at MIT, but then there was also these diplomatic papers and so forth, professional libraries, basically. So, again, if you didn't know that there was McChrystal and Associates, very close friend of Mike Flynn, even if you don't think that there's an association between her murder and Stan McChrystal, at least now you know that he was very involved. Now, gun your engine if you're a drug dealer for romp. Now, if you know that, there's maybe a linkage there. There's maybe text messages between them and so forth. But again, that's a neighborhood that really doesn't have a lot of violent crime. The woman is stabbed in the throat, up-and-coming 33-year-old, kind of seemingly random. Now, you can believe that it's a random crime, which is fine. I'm just saying that I'm bringing forward connections that may or may not be relevant. If the DC police would have put out a video of her and the assailant in the same frame and her approaching them, I don't need to see the stabbing, but her approaching her in a violent way, then I would have dropped the whole case. The other thing is, I know that there's the Russian dad. I didn't see the Russian dad on the film. I only saw the Hispanic mom talking. So again, she wasn't there. She doesn't know what happened. So she's only reacting to what's been told to her. Again, this is Newsham. This is the police chief Newsham. I've dealt with his people. I've dealt with Rod Wheeler. I've dealt with their stories about Seth Rich. And so I don't have a lot of trust. My job as a reporter is to ask the questions. If they want to release the tape and remove all doubt, that's fine. I don't doubt that she was stabbed in the throat. I've seen the tape where she comes into the Chinese takeout place and she's obviously clutching her throat and she's bleeding to death. So I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting that she was killed on K Street. But if we do have this very close friend, and remember, Stan McChrystal was with Flynn not only in Somalia, Task Force Orange, but then went to Afghanistan, and before that, Iraq. So there's like a 10-year history with those guys together. Now, he's a key investor in this company that's reaching in. Again, remember what Task Force Orange does. They do electronic surveillance and signal intercept. So was somebody trying to send a big chill message? That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to say that somebody else did it. I'm not trying to say a Houthi brought into the Pakistani embassy or the Yemeni embassy is the one that was. I know. I'm saying that's what I'm saying. The guy they said it killed her. I'm just wondering what the motivation is behind that person. Is he being paid? Is he now being released? There was a very poor picture of the person, and I'm just asking the question. If people want to discard it, that's fine. But I do think it's important to look at Fiscal Note. Look at the Brookings Institution. Again, Soros funding it. Fiona Hill in that group sending email to Bob Otto, running a covert program, sending it to Redway, who's a CIA guy. Other people on that list, all in Russia studies. Other people in that list on Five Eyes from Australia, and the top people in Five Eyes and in England, sending confidential information to each other. Is that a weapons program? Is that a spy ring? We've got a New York Times article where somebody says, I'm in the White House, I am the spy ring. So it's worth looking into. Again, I didn't write the op-ed. Fiona Hill wrote the op-ed or somebody else wrote the op-ed. So I start saying, okay, once we know we have a spy, who would the most likely person be? Well, to me, it would be the person who's communicating to other Five Eyes spy agencies with the byline confidential and other CIA people. Kind of makes sense, okay? It would be the person who would have a motive would be the person who doesn't want Stan McChrystal's crawlers going into the Brookings Institution. To me, that just makes sense. If somebody has a better theory, then that's fine. I'm not saying that it's just not a random killing, but usually there's a reason for these things. Usually there's a reason for these killings, and that's all I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to put out information so that you know how close Stanley McChrystal is to Fiscal Note. She was the second in command there. I'm not saying they had a love relationship. I'm just saying they would have had a text back and forth. And the next step would be to interview Stan McChrystal. Did you know Wendy McKenzie? So that's the idea here, just putting information out so that people can make the connections if they're relevant.